Hey YouTube, Ryan Knight here. Went ahead and was talking with a bunch of my buddies and also a few people from one of my old guilds on a game that I used to play uh, on actually oddly enough Ventrilo. I haven't used Ventrilo in so fucking long, but I ended up getting on and talking with them, and we all started discussing, like what our favorite parts of games were, and we started talking about kind of like what would be like our idea of a perfect game with our current knowledge that we have right now, based off of our experiences throughout our life. Because the thing is all of us are kind of older gamers. We've been around. We've watched gaming change uh, as it's progressed. Um, I know that probably doesn't make the most sense, but it basically, we've been around since gaming was really a thing. I think the youngest one in the group is 25, and so he's seen a vast majority of um, the gaming industry changes that have happened. But we were all discussing this, and the thing is we all came up with an MMO, and it's like, okay, why did we go toward an MMO and not like a single player experience or something like that? Well, for one, it was a social situation, so we were probably in that social mindset. But what we ended up basically kind of agreeing on was a few different things. One is we would love to see an MMO where crafting actually meant something, where kind of a more realistic take on crafting, not sitting there and saying, oh well, you have to, crafting's going to take hours and hours and hours for one thing, just for you to learn, oh well, you screwed up on this one thing, so you have to scrap the whole project and start again. We're not talking about that. We're talking about like basically building weapons from the ground up, so deciding what materials you want to use for the weapon, for different parts of the weapon. So not just deciding on what metal to use, or what wood to use or something like that, for a sword or a bow respectively. We're talking about like deciding on what type of material you want to use for the hilt, what type of material you want to use for the metal for the blade, what's the tang width, it's just all the way down the line. And we sat there, and with all of the different things that you could do with this, I mean, hell, just a basic broadsword would have so many different variations that you could do, that you could use to change how that broadsword functions, like the amount of damage that it does, how good it is at blocking, what's its durability, what's its enchantability. And you could go ahead and have that for each different piece of gear. And the thing is with armors, it would get even more complex, because now you can basically kind of have a comfort stat, which would make it, because if you're in armor and it's constantly pinching you or constantly getting in your way, obviously you're not going to be fighting at 100%. So you're going to want to go ahead and have that, but also at the same time you kind of want to keep the armor light. And so people would have to go ahead and figure that out. Would there be a objectively best thing, just for stats? Of course. But the thing is it's not going to fit everyone's different playstyle, especially if you had it as a classless system where people learned abilities based off of the actions that they took. Kind of like how Skyrim went ahead and did it. A little different, but, Skyrim at least had the general concept of it. But go ahead and have it where, as you're playing with your character, instead of you necessarily going to a level up menu or something like that, have it where your character's learning these abilities based off of what you're doing. So if you're constantly blocking and so on and so forth, you're going to end up learning how to do a shield bash or counter, some sort of parry. If you're a person that tends to use magic, you're going to get more proficient at magic. You're going to learn different spells, and then that can actually be based off of what are the spells that you typically use. Like, do you use a lot of frost spells? Do you use a lot of fire spells? Do you mix your spells and that sort of thing? Maybe you could learn a spell that does both types of damage, of course in a lesser form, but as you go ahead and you use that spell, then you figure out how to incorporate other aspects, how to use it for utility. I mean, just one thing after another after another. We actually spent a few hours talking about this, and when I say a few hours, I'm talking like we were talking for at the very least 3. That was that was the last time I remember looking at the clock. But it's kind of interesting because we were sitting there and we were talking about this, and we got ourselves so hyped up that if someone was to come out with a game even remotely close to that, I guarantee you there would be a lot more people that would be hyped about it. Of course, a lot of people would be very leery at this point, if a game promised all these things. So it wouldn't be one of those things where you could sit there and promise all of these things. You would have to sit there and let people see it and just kind of let it be, one of those sleeper sale games where it's all like people go out and play it, and then as word spreads, more people play it, and then the word spreads more, and so on and so forth. It wouldn't be one of those games where you could get away with that whole, oh, well, the vast majority of our sales are going to be within the first 2 or 3 months. It would actually probably be more around the line of 6 or 7 months, if not a little bit longer. But I don't see that as a bad thing, because then you're going to have a spread of people. So you're going to have people at all different levels. You're going to have people at different experience areas. And the thing is, you're not going to have a cookie cutter character, since everyone plays differently. And if characters are learning different abilities, and it's not on a basic logarithm, they're not going to be able to really manipulate that. It's going to be something organic. I mean, your character would obviously start out with basic skills, like attacking with a sword, or maybe some basic magic. All of that, kind of, give them a little bit of everything, and then see where they go with it, and have their character develop based off of what they end up doing. That would keep people from sitting there and rolling multiple characters to go ahead and be a magic caster or be a tank or something like that, because they might end up becoming all of these things as they play. And don't have a limit on what abilities a person can get. So like if they unlock one ability, it locks another one. Don't have that. Have it where they can technically unlock every ability. It would just take them an entire lifetime to do. Now, a game like that would be absolutely amazing, especially if you could somehow work in a way of quests feeling organic. Have it where, certain NPCs end up needing certain things at certain times, and you can go ahead, have it be like a in-game seasonal thing. Have an actual season rotation in the game, not necessarily based off of real life. Don't sit there and say, oh, well, it has to be, winter in real life to be able to do that, because then you're also going to have a weird thing between the hemispheres. No, just don't do that. But have it where, as the game progresses through its timeline, go ahead and have it where different things change. Have it where certain factions actually end up getting destroyed, new factions rise up. Have it where it's constantly changing like that. Make it feel like a living, breathing world instead of this kind of... There was a video that Yahtzee made about MMOs. I think it was actually on his review of Guild Wars. He sat there and he bitched about, you know, a NPC saying, "Oh, thank God only you could help us," and da 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 da, while he's sitting there and seeing other people queuing up trying to turn in the quest. You know, it really makes that feel disingenuous, and you're all like, whatever. You know, and it becomes nothing but flavor text. And it can really break that immersion. But if you have it where, you know, an NPC's all like, you know, you're sitting there and talking with them, they're all like, "Hey, I need this. Do you think you could go and get this for me?" Or, "Hey, I have some trouble with this. Can you go ahead and take care of it?" You know, and that sort of thing. And then have it where, you know, the NPCs are, like, for them to exchange information, they actually have to be talking with one another. You know, so have it where they'll have actual conversations at a, you know, at a market or something like that, talk about a character, you know, a player character doing something for them, you know, and spreading the word and that sort of thing. That would be something that would be kind of interesting in my opinion, because at that point now there's a feeling of randomness. And I mean, good luck to people who write game guides. I mean, especially if they're, you know, like once a dungeon's been cleared, enemies don't just sit there and respawn in it in the same way. You know, have it where it's all like, you end up going in the first time and it's a bandit hideout, and so then you go in, wipe it out, and so then the next person ends up coming along, you know, maybe stumbling across it and that sort of thing, and they're seeing a bunch of dead bodies, but there's like a bunch of zombies or something like that, or spirits, or, you know, just have it where it's always different. Have it where people end up actually having to play on the fly, as opposed to being able to plan out every last thing and getting it down to a routine. Because at that point, people are going to remain interested. Obviously, make sure that there's always something going on, and you can still have, you know, your standard bog quest, but, you know, having those extra side things would be exceedingly cool. And actually have it where when people do stuff, there's an actual change. I mean, obviously don't have it where they can kill NPCs that are important, because then it's going to be a massive issue. You know, then you're going to get that one asshole that just runs around, you know, murdering NPCs in their sleep, and all of a sudden no one can sell anything, no one can buy anything, no one can get certain goods or certain services, and it would end up just being a giant shit show. But have it where people can go ahead and actually get, even if it's an instance thing, go ahead and have it where they can actually make a shop, you know, or have it where they can go ahead and log off their character, and have it where while they're logged off, their character is sitting there, and basically it becomes an NPC and it's selling things. I know that there was one game where you could kind of do that. It was actually fairly interesting. But, you know, have it where the items that they're selling are actually out there. Obviously, you know, because they're logged off, you know, their character can't be killed or anything like that. You know, no one can come up and pickpocket them or anything, because that would be just ridiculous. Sorry about that. Random truck convoy going down my street. Have no idea what that's about. Anywho, but have it where the area feels kind of lived in, as far as that's concerned. Have it be an accurate thing, and don't. And I mean, people wouldn't have to do the whole bazaar thing. If they didn't want to. It would have to be one of those things. All right, you set it up. You're all like, all right, I'm going to be logging off. So here are these items. Here are what I want to sell them for. That sort of thing. And here are some items that I'm looking for, and here's how much I'm willing to pay for them. And here's how many of those items that I need. Go ahead and have that, because that's something where it's all like you end up coming back and you're all like, oh my god, I have a crap ton of gold, or oh my god, I finally got that item that I've been looking for, so I can go ahead and craft this thing. It's one of those things that makes it interesting for people. And if games are going to go ahead and do that, if a game was to go ahead and do that, do you really think people would end up getting bored with it? I don't, because especially if you have to replace parts of items, parts of weapons. Every once in a while you have to replace the blade, or decide to make a new one. Maybe have a thing where after you've used it for a while, the handle has a chance of breaking each time you swing a weapon. Whatnot, just, have those things in there, so it makes it to where you can go ahead and actually have a sustained economy. Have it where, the people that are constantly going out and fighting are going to be more predisposed to, find a person that they trust to make good weaponry. A person that's invested the time and effort into going ahead and crafting. And have it where crafting isn't one of those things that you can just power level. Have it where it's all like, your character can only level so much using certain materials, and then they have to experience something new. They have to make different discoveries. And have it where it's kind of based off of their skill level. It's all like, here's your chance of making this discovery. But who knows, maybe even have it where, kind of like with the abilities thing, have it where, they sit there and have it where they can go ahead and actively mix different metals together to see what properties it gets. And I mean, you can go ahead and do a lot of different things as far as that's concerned. I mean, you can even make it to where, there's basically full-fledged metallurgy. Make it so that, bone tools have different things that they can go ahead and put into them. Have it where enchanting, might affect certain materials better than other materials. Whatever. Go ahead and have that, and just see what people come up with. It would be fairly interesting, in my opinion. Because then you might have a person that decides, hey, you know what? I'm going to go strictly with kunai or shuriken. While another person's all like, nope, I'm sword and board all the way. And have another person that's all like, well, I've got this sword, but it helps me cast magic because of the bone hilt on it. Just have some random shit like that. Go ahead and actually allow for varied styles of gameplay, and you're going to end up seeing a lot of people flocking to a game, and they're going to be constantly talking with other people. They're going to be constantly interacting with other people. You're going to actually get that real MMO experience, as opposed to what you get now, which is people just grouping up to go ahead, run a quest really quick, or run a dungeon, and then never talking to each other again. Wash, rinse, and repeat, and it's like, other than like guilds of people, so just so that way they have a group of people that they can go ahead and just run the same quests with or the same dungeons with to grind things out. MMOs didn't used to be like that. It actually used to be people, getting together, having fun, running different stuff with different compositions of characters to see how well that they could do, see what worked. And now, thanks to guides and people, YouTube in general, as far as that's concerned, it's really taken a lot of that out of it. I mean, a game will only be out for like maybe a month, and people will sit there and have guides out for, oh, this is the best build for this type, and this is the best build for this, and if you're not doing this, then you're a loser, piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. It's all like, what the fuck? I mean, the thing is with a game like what I'm describing, you wouldn't be able to have that, because they're going to sit there and go, well, this is the best thing. And a person goes, no, I actually have this ability that I got that trumps your shit. Sorry. It's all like my ability has not only in combat utility, but out of combat utility. And, have different things like that, so that way someone can go ahead and do that. I mean, hell, one of the people in my group ended up actually suggesting having your character basically have an age. So a certain amount of gameplay hours, or if they end up dying and not getting resurrected, then another character is made, and you get to inherit all of your old items and some of your old skills, but you've got some other different random skills, or just have it where it's a lineage thing. And that's one of those situations where I actually agreed with the person. That would be somewhat interesting, and it would add actual stakes to your character dying. Because you might end up getting a character that, yeah, it still has most of those abilities, but it doesn't have that one ability that you really liked, that you ended up getting, and you have no idea how you got it. So now you're going to have to just keep playing the same way to go ahead and re-get it. And yet you might get several different abilities before then. And now you also have to level your character all over again. Maybe have it where there's a quest that you can go ahead and do to go ahead and, yeah, your character dies at the end of the quest, but the resulting character can go ahead and, it's going to have all those abilities and attributes that you brought up. It's still going to inherit all of the gear that your character had before, and it's going to inherit some of the reputation from the previous character. Go ahead and have something like that in there, so that way people have to level up multiple times, but because it's a living, it feels like a living, breathing world, you're not going to get bored, and it's not going to be a grind going through and doing the same thing all over again. It's going to be different each time. That's how you keep people playing. Does that mean that the game's going to perpetually keep going? No, not necessarily. Is it going to give it an insanely long lifetime? More than likely. So, what do you guys think? What types of things would you love to see in video games now? If you want to go ahead and concentrate on single player and not multiplayer, by all means, go ahead. I'm more than willing to go ahead and read all of that and hear you out, because, I mean, single player games have their place as well. Hell, even if it's you talking about mobile games, go for it. Because, I mean, hell, I'm not above playing mobile games. As anyone would know that's been watching my channel for any amount of time. But go ahead, let me know. What would you love to see? I mean, pick just at least one thing that you would absolutely love to see in your favorite genre of game. Go ahead and put it down in the comments below. I would love to hear it, and maybe someone will actually be looking that's going ahead and making games, and they might actually throw it into theirs. You never know. It could happen. So have yourselves a great day or night, as in my situation. Take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you later.